Can it be? Can it possibly happen? Will it happen? Will they be on the field 1 week from right now playing football for us to see? Not in person, but at least on our television sets. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, striking up the live stream on a Thursday night. I appreciate everyone who's on the line right now, as this is not typically one of our windows to go live. But as you know, from following me on a regular basis, I let you know all the time that I go live as much as I possibly can. This is the thing that I love to do more than anything, is to broadcast live and to take your calls. So the call-in shows are near and dear to my heart, and we will be more consistent with our live call-in shows in the future. But as it stands right now, we go live when at all possible, and specifically on Sunday nights. It's our aim to go live each and every Sunday night at 10 o'clock Eastern time with the live call-in show. Then, of course, we've got team-specific live streams throughout the week. Ohio State and Miami are coming up on Friday and Saturday. Check out our Tuesday night show with Logan Robinson and Jason Parker, Florida State Seminoles Live, that was just posted. So please check out that conversation. It was a good time as usual. Tomorrow, Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern time, we go live with Ohio State Football Talk. And also, prior to that, we're talking Miami football with the Wholesome One Friday at 11:30 a.m. And then also with Cam Underwood Saturday at 11 a.m. So Miami fans, you got to get up early and be ready before noon the next 2 days with the Wholesome One on Friday and Cam Underwood on Saturday, talking of the Canes. All right, our two subjects for tonight would be, first and foremost, we're going to look at week one. And once I looked at week one, we're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on week one of college football, the 2020 edition, because this is a year unlike any other year, and this is even before the season ever starts. So it's really week two that I think most of us are looking forward to seeing. Still, we'll look at week one, because there will be football on the TV set, and then look at week two when the Power Five kick into play, specifically the ACC. We got 10 on the line. Hope for many, many more. The number is 860-325-3687. 860-325-3687. The other topic for me to throw out was, I saw here on ESPN.com in the last couple of days, they've served up their Position U lists. And we will dive into their formula and their lists for the top position schools on offense and defense since the BCS era started in 1998. So we'll look at the ESPN formula, maybe what I would do if I was going to set forth a formula to determine QBU, running back U, wide receiver U, DBU, on down the line, each position for the best accuracy to rate the schools that are producing the best talent, the most talent at those positions, both the production on the field in college and how it projects and then plays out in the NFL. 860-325-3687. Again, our focus is on week 1 and 2 of the college football season, starting 1 week from tonight on Thursday night. Now, many of you who have been joining me for quite some time know that we had a countdown clock that counted down play to last season, and then we had it strike. Oh, we got a call coming in. We had the countdown clock in play most of the offseason to count us toward an August 29th. So we would be sitting on week 1 right now, 2 days away from college football on August 29th. But of course, there was some kind of pandemic I read about in the papers that kind of wreaked havoc on all of this. So we were 1 week away from some college football on Thursday night, September 3rd. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mr. Mark Rogers. This is Christian Ballard with Ballard Sports Media. How you doing?
There he is. Hey, Christian. How are you? It's good to hear from you.
I'm doing pretty well. Obviously, like the rest of us, we're all looking forward to some football. If you're an SEC fan, though, you got to wait a little later because it's September 26th. But looking at the schedule, only 2-3 weeks off from a game like Clemson and Wake Forest, Duke and Notre Dame. You start to see some ACC and some Big 12 action. and talking about, you brought up like position U. There's always a debate about, who's DBU, defensive back university. I made a video on my channel months back talking about like Alabama, I think is, and I want to get your thoughts, but as far as the Saban era goes, they have been running back university. Would you agree? Because you look at guys like Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, go down the list, Damian Harris in recent years, Josh Jacobs. I mean, I can name, I could go on, but you get what I'm saying.
I know them all. I'm right there with you. So I don't think there's really any question outside of maybe one school competing for running back U that Alabama's produced the best running back since Nick Saban stepped on campus.
Right.
The best running back on the roster at that time was, of course, Glenn Coffey, who had a couple of really nice seasons, but was not recruited by Nick Saban. And then came the Mark Ingram era. Of course, they won the national championship with Ingram winning the Heisman in 2009. And as you well know, as an SEC and Alabama fan, there was then, it seemed to be where there was a primary back, but the backup would still be a 1,000-yard back or close to it, and a future NFL back. And they just kind of went in line. They kind of played in tandem together, and there would be a lead back, and then the number two back would get a lot of reps, a lot of carries, and was clearly a number one back for most teams. And then he would take over, and then somebody else would step in. And then here in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been more like 4 running backs that have been that good to be able to churn out NFL-type careers once they leave Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a few years ago, it was the Tua's sophomore year, the same year they got blown out by Clemson, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
Get it. They had 3 backs in rotation. They not only had Najee Harris, they had Josh Jacobs and Damian Harris. They had a trio of running backs that they would give the ball to. I think Josh Jacobs and Damian Harris, they were mostly the primary backs, although Najee got a lot of great time. You go back a few years, Bo Scarborough. Of course, we know about Sean Alexander, Mark Ingram, and, we look at guys like that. I mean, it's hard to find a year in the Saban era where there was not a standout running back at Alabama. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Not just the standout. Again, 2 or 3 of them. And it seemed like he had the one guy when he first arrived, Coffey, and then because of the great recruiting, he then put a tandem together where, for example, TJ Yeldon at a particular time was the number one guy, 2013, 2014, in that range. 2000 more, I think it was 12 and 13. I think I'm skipping a year. I think Yeldon was in the NFL by 14, but where he was the number one back, and Derrick Henry was the change of pace. You usually think of a scat back as a change of pace, but where Derrick Henry would get less carries and he was coming off the bench. But it was clear that as soon as Yeldon moved on, boom, then it was Henry. And then I'm looking at the 2015 team and thinking that's about as deep as it got in winning a national championship, where Derrick Henry won the Heisman Trophy, of course, with 28 touchdowns and 2,200 yards. And they had Kenyon Drake, who's almost been a better NFL player than a college player just because of the injuries he suffered and the lack of opportunities in college at times. But they had Henry, Drake, Bo Scarborough, and of course, Damian Harris was on that team as well.
Yeah. And, and again, we can sit here and, who's DBU? Who's DBU? And there's Miami, there's Florida, and Bama's in the mix. But I think, man, I just think that ever since Saban's been in Alabama, I think it's no question Alabama has produced some of the best depth and talent at the running back position. And you look at this year's roster, too. Najee Harris, you got him coming back. There's a guy, I think, who is it? Trey Sanders. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's a recruit from last year. I mean, go down the list, man. They're going to be loaded back this year, too. Keelan Robinson, Jace McClellan. I could go down the list, but I appreciate you taking my call. Bama is RBU. How about DBU? Go.
Ohio State's DBU.
I can see that.
I think it's a great conversation. So I don't think it's as clear cut by any stretch as the Alabama argument is for running back U. I will make one last comment about RBU and make a case for Wisconsin. I'm not going to say that they're better than Alabama. Again, I think there's a clear distinction between Alabama and everybody else at running back. But I do think that Wisconsin is most likely second best in the nation if we're going back again 10 to 12 to 15 years with Melvin Gordon and James White and Monte Ball and down the line with all their great running backs that they've had there at Wisconsin. And, of course, Jonathan Taylor being the most recent.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Alabama's got they're the clearest number one position for any unit on the field, any position that I can think of.
Yeah.
I think the DBU, I don't know why people gravitate to DBU. Something must have started at some point, some kind of argument that gained a lot of attention.
I think it's the fact they say defense wins championships, probably.
Well, why is it DBU then? Because if anything, the defensive line is more important than the backfield. The defensive line is where you start building a defense. But obviously it's not as, I hate this term, but I'll use it here, sexy a position as a defensive back. But and it's a great debate because you've got a number of schools who I would say in the last 10 or 15 years, Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, Florida State, Texas. Going back, Texas going back a little bit ways. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyway, thanks for taking my call and have a good day.
All right, Ballard. Good to hear from you.
Well done. Thanks.
All right, we got Phil on the line. Go Noles. Football coming soon. Yes, it is. And again, we'll look at the week one matchups, which is pretty thin, pretty sparse. And for anybody that is focused strictly in the Power Five, not a whole lot to watch. Absolutely, actually nothing to watch next week. But of course, 1 week later, the ACC is in play. So let's go ahead and look at the schedule. So what I've enjoyed, the way the college football season has been structured in week one and actually week 0 is what we've been calling it for years, is that you will get those matchups in week 0, typically the last weekend of August. And we'll get to see a lot of teams that if your viewing habits are close to mine, they're teams that you're never going to watch the rest of the season. You're going to watch the UNLV Hawaii game in week 0. You're going to watch, it comes to mind, a Colorado State-Oregon State game. So you're talking about the worst team in the Pac-12 at the time. This was 2 or 3 years ago. Worst team in the Pac-12. You're not going to watch them the rest of the year. And then they're playing a Colorado State team that is a mid-level Mountain West team, and it's an exciting game, and it's like 58-42. And it's a week 0 type game, and it gets your feet wet for watching college football. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line.
Hey, Mark. Reasonable Gump here. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, I was actually going to call first and give him my answer to your topic, but the guy before me kind of beat me to it. My answer was also going to be Alabama for running back U, but I'm going to go a little bit out. I'm going to go a little bit in a direction that most people may not think.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that Alabama running back U not only is because obviously they've had all these great name running backs that were at least really good in college. I think a lot of them have done pretty well in the NFL. But I think the reason everyone thinks of Alabama back is I don't know too many other schools who have had that many just like big names like that, over the entire course of probably the last, decade or so. But I think there can also be a case to maybe made for Alabama with wide receiver. A lot of people may not go that way, but just but stop and think about it for a second. Julio Jones, we got guys like Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Devontae Smith, Kevin Norwood. So most of these guys, I think, unlike a lot of Alabama positions, which seem to be, as far as I understand, either really good or just a complete bust in the NFL. Most NFL guys tell me that Alabama receivers tend to do really well in the pros. You can either confirm or deny that. But so I'm actually going to go. I'm going to go away from the answer I was going to call on since it's already done, and I'm going to say Alabama for wide receiver U. But I think there's probably more competition in this one.
Well, there's definitely more competition because most people would not put Alabama at the top spot at wide receiver. I think they're certainly in the top 5. The thing that you need to do when analyzing Alabama wide receiver play is you got to put away the stats. Because if we're just looking at stats, then up until just a couple of years ago, and the emergence of the spread offense at Alabama and Tua taking over and throwing up ridiculous numbers, Alabama had the talent at the position. You mentioned guys like Amari Cooper and Julio Jones, of course. If we're just looking at the Saban era, Julio Jones was the first and the best of the great wide receivers. But he wasn't going to blow anybody away with his numbers because they didn't pass the ball enough and haven't up until the last couple of years. So there's a difference for me between just evaluating the talent on the field. Like a Calvin Ridley put up good numbers, but he didn't put up ridiculous numbers. But was he arguably the best player in the country at his position? Yeah. He was a top 5 player at wide receiver in the country, but his stats didn't say that. He just was. And then now it's being proven in the NFL.
And the NFL obviously could see through that as well,
sure,
considering how high these guys were drafted.
Absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, just want to throw that out. I don't know too much about what the rest of the other schools have put up, but kind of like you, up until I guess really very very recently, I've never saw Alabama as a big passing, wide receiver school. But I just kind of stopped to think about it. I'm like, well, wait a second. I think I can probably name at least as many wide receivers as I could running backs.
So, Reasonable Gump, here's the ESPN list of wide receiver U. And then I'll read off their methodology. Their top 10 is Clemson 10, Notre Dame 9, Alabama 8, Florida 7, Oklahoma State 6, Florida State 5, Ohio State 4, LSU 3, Oklahoma 2, USC 1. And that goes back to 1998, the BCS era.
Okay, what's their methodology?
Their methodology, let me scroll here, has something to do with college production mixed with first 4 years of NFL production. So they're basically determining what talent that school sent to the NFL rather than measuring a player's 12th and 13th year in the NFL, figuring that it's not necessarily reflective on the school at that point. So, okay, so let me get to it right here. So first and foremost, it's 1998 on. Secondly, it says measuring both quantity and quality. So, of course, I think that's reasonable. If School A is churning out defensive linemen to the NFL, but none of them are standouts, well, that's still, you're turning out NFL players, but none of them have turned out to be tremendous players. So there's a balance there. So quantity and quality, rather than just a tally of NFL players from each school, they leverage the Pro Football Reference data to weight our findings based on draft round and average NFL value during their first 4 seasons. Beyond 4 years, the value of the college's contribution is far outweighed by NFL development. Okay, that's their opinion, but I understand the logic. Lastly, we wanted to include college performance too. That's novel for them to throw in college performance. Well, I think that's the entire reason we're here, rating collegiate players, not just who's churning out the best NFL players. But so we gave additional points for all conference and all America awards. And lastly, they are solving the, quote, what they term the Jalen Hurts problem, where a successful player attended multiple schools, had great accomplishments at both schools. And so which school does he belong to? So they are connecting the awards that were achieved and the success in college simply with the team that he was playing for at the time, but the NFL success goes to the last school attended. So that's the formula.
I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised they got guys like Florida State or USC that high. I understand it goes back to 1998, and so it takes in more time when those schools were successful. But I got it, particularly USC at the top. I mean, hell, I could be wrong. They might be being dormant over there, and at the same time producing a bunch of really good receivers, for all I know. So, yeah, I am surprised that a USC is number one. I think if you did move it up and maybe start it at 2010 and just say which wide receiver is the decade, of the decade, I think those schools would be mixed and jumbled up a lot differently than what it looks like.
They're serving up a number of really good players for USC, but I'm not wowed by this list of Michael Pittman Jr., Juju Smith-Schuster, Nelson Aguilar, Marquise Lee, Robert Woods, and Dwayne Jarrett. You could also throw Mike Williams into that as well. They failed to do that. He was probably the best, most productive player at the collegiate level. He was a bust in the NFL, but he was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. But so that's what they're going with. They're a little heavy on the NFL side for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly when we're talking about college, university.
Yeah, we're talking about yes, exactly.
But it was considerate of them to factor in college performance, as you said, in the college award.
Which I would factor in statistics for statistic-oriented position plays. Quarterback, wide receiver, running back. I would put a stats element. Of course, you can't for offensive linemen. You almost strictly have to go with what awards were won and if they were first, second, third team, conference, and All-America.
Mm-hmm. So just real quick spin-off right here. You ever trust me, I'm going to ask you this question. It has nothing to do with college football, but I'm immediately going to tie it back into college football as soon as I get an answer.
Okay.
You ever watch? Did you ever watch a show called The Big Bang Theory?
Oh yeah, many times.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
You might remember in one of the very first or 2 or 3 episodes where Sheldon was asking or Leonard made a sarcastic comment saying, "I'm going to have to hold up a sarcasm sign whenever I'm being sarcastic."
Sure, I do.
So whenever I am, from now on, whenever I am roasting Mark Rogers in the comments section of his Tennessee or Florida predictions, I'm going to write in all caps sarcasm. Just so not only Mark Rogers, but these butthurt Tennessee fans will also recognize that no, I'm not really that stupid, or in one particular case, Georgia.
Well, I might be mistaken, but if I was sitting at home and I was taking in college football content or any content, but we'll stick to college football, and I ran across some dude and I thought he did pretty well and the content made sense and I followed him and he had good guests and all the things that maybe people perceive of me. But, he produced a prediction video on my favorite football team, maybe the Florida Gators. And he said they were going to go 7-3. And I took exception to that because I think they're going to go 9-1. I find it amusing that people cancel subscriptions and say they will never watch again because they give indication that they've watched for a long time or that they've enjoyed watching, but because they're offended by a prediction, like it's a personal vendetta or it's some kind of personal attack that I have against
about your Florida video. They're going to unsubscribe.
There were a few people on there that said they weren't going to watch anymore. I don't understand that. Like I'm not picking on Florida.
This is what happens. I've been trying to warn you, Mark. This is what happens when you try to prop Tennessee up, man. Bad things start happening. All right. Now you have to deal with the fire and the hail and the frogs and the locusts and the end of days. All right.
Did I really prop Tennessee up at 6-4?
Yeah. Well, on an SEC only schedule, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it's.
Or just, nah. But yeah, I thought all that was pretty hysterical. But on your most recent one, I just really don't, on the Ole Miss one, man. I just don't see them losing their first 4 games. I got to give them one of those teams. I'm saying Kentucky. You're saying Ole Miss is going to lose all the first 4 of their games. I don't know. Lane Kiffin's got to be better than that. And they got Kentucky and Arkansas. Surely they can beat one of those.
Well, hopefully it's not Kentucky, or my season's going to collapse here. My dark horse. If they can't beat Ole Miss, I'm in trouble. Yeah, I'm a big Kentucky supporter this year.
I noticed.
They're the closest to Columbus. Maybe that's a theory right there.
I guess. Are they? No, Missouri, I thought might be. Was Kentucky
Oh, no. To Columbus, Ohio?
I don't. Yeah. I guess, well,
Lexington, Kentucky's much closer than Missouri.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm not looking at a map. I'm just.
Oh, yeah. I've made that drive from the deep south to Akron, Ohio many times. Yes. Yep. It's probably about Columbus.
Well, anyway.
Let's see. It's probably about 4.5 to 5 hours.
Huh. Thought Ohio was much farther north than that. But anyway, I'm just giving more of an indictment on the Alabama education system on your national show right now.
I was big on geography when I was growing up. When I was a little tyke, boy, I knew my capitals and I knew my cities and the whole deal. My state birds. I was big on
Yeah,
that.
my dad can do that too. All right, man. You got some more callers here. So, yep, I think Alabama is running back U. I'm going to throw their name in the pot for wide receiver U.
Okay.
No, I don't think they'll actually come out ahead on that one.
I think your offensive line,
Unfortunately, man, it's just like you said. It's not a sexy position. I hate to admit it, but I don't know too many names of offensive line characters. I feel bad about that because I think it's the most important position in college football other than the quarterback. So,
yeah, ESPN's giving you offensive line.
But for that reason, I just would not have guessed it. But I wouldn't have guessed any school with offensive line. I would. So I'm probably a bad fan for that.
Not Wisconsin.
Hey, how about well, yeah, Wisconsin. But how about Kicker U?
Kicker U. Do they go with Kicker U here? Let's see what they got. I would hope they've gone to the kicker. Let's see. Kicker. No kickers. No kickers? No, just DB. Alabama's number 3 at DBU.
No, sarcasm sign. I was putting Alabama's name in for Kicker U.
Well, I know I was looking for a Kicker U, but I was discarding your comment because yes, you've missed the most PATs in the nation, like in the last 10 years. I think I heard that.
Oh,
I believe you have.
It was bad. Oh, it's still bad. That one I'll never understand. I've been watching your channel for like years now, waiting for you to put out some video that answers that question of why Alabama can be this good, but they can't even kick extra points.
All right, we got a request from Reasonable Gump, so I better jump on that. Alabama.
I need you to, man. I need answers on this. No one will answer this question for me.
You might be the 2013 national champs with a decent kicker. I know that was a long one against Auburn, but still, you got to kick it past the, halfway into the end zone.
I'm not going to go there. That wasn't a kicker's fault, though. All right, man.
All right,
all
Reasonable Gum. Appreciate it. I believe that was a Nick Saban issue right there. If he had to have known that his kicker couldn't reach from 56 yards, not even come close, kick the ball a couple of yards into the end zone. So that is missing by 10 or 12 yards, because you need the height on the kick, not just that it needs to get back to the goalpost, but it needs to have that much height. So if the ball is being caught 2 or 3 yards deep in the end zone, we're talking about the 2013 kick 6 game against Auburn, 2 or 3 yards into the end zone. Wow, that kick missed by a ton. And I know it was a long one, but 56 yards in this day and age, it's still a reasonable shot for many kickers across the country to give it a go, to give it a shot and think, okay, we've got about a 15 or 20% chance of making this field goal. If we miss it, we go to overtime, because they would have to bring the ball all the way back 105 yards for a touchdown. That's not going to happen. Good to see Navy Thomas. Cheryl, good to see you. Got 808 Canes, Captain Trips, Yasharawan, Yawada. I'm sure I butchered that mightily, but big U fan. So, Yasharadan on Friday at 11:30 Eastern Time, and we will post this. Of course, you will get the notifications if you subscribe. We've got Miami Football Talk live tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and if you Miami fans can't get enough Miami Football Talk, we come back at you on Saturday at 11 a.m., and all you Miami critics and detractors will tell me, Mark, you do too much Miami content. But if you've got really good guests and people watch, then we're going to keep talking. Yes, I would like to balance it out more. I would like to add more and additional team-specific live streams. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Let's settle on a decent comment here, and then we'll do a little digging. So Cheryl's got something decent to say. Maybe I need to select some moderators today. Every time I see Cheryl's name now, that NBA fan has suggested that she would be the perfect moderator, it leads me to think, okay, I'm going to be accepting nominations and bids for moderators. And then I'll have to decide what I need you to moderate, besides, obviously, the live chat. So if you would like to be a moderator, let me know. Thought we would be more successful than 30 on the line, but that's fine. We're talking college football here, and we're going to look at the schedule for week 1. And it's week. It is week 1, and it's week. Yes, W-E-A-K, week. Because I think when I received the first phone call, I was in the midst of just giving my thought process on the schedule format as it typically rolls out, where we've got this week 0 group of games. There's only about 4 games. But we get to see just a little touch of maybe 1 or 2 lightweights from the Power 5. Arizona last year played Hawaii. Oregon State a couple of years ago against Colorado State. But we get those group of 5, and for some reason, they seem to love to get started early out west. Maybe it's their opportunity to be seen by the nation. So we get those Colorado State, Oregon State, Arizona, Hawaii type matchups in week 0. And these are typically games that I would never watch. Not that I wouldn't watch any college football game, but they're up against much better games. So I don't see those teams play the rest of the year. So I get the taste of Colorado State football, week 0. And then we roll 5 days later into a Thursday night where we get a little Big Ten, a little ACC. It was Clemson, Georgia Tech last week 1, Thursday night. We had a really good we had a really good Purdue Northwestern game with Rondell Moore making his debut a couple of years ago, 2017. maybe 2018. That was a great night of college football. So we usually have, then we're rolling. Week 1, Thursday night, then there's some Friday games that come into play, some higher level group of 5, and then we're rolling into week 1. That's typically what we've got. But this year, we're going to take whatever we can get. And what we get in week 1, and it is officially being called week 1 here, there's a lot of postponements on Saturday. On what would have been that Saturday, week 0, August 29th, 2 days from now. All right, Thursday, if you're starved for football, this is the opener. And somebody teed me up on this one. Who was it? Somebody teed me up on wanting some analysis. You know, I should go all in on this one and preview this game. Central Arkansas at UAB, ESPN on Thursday night, 8 o'clock. Kicking off at the same time, so you need 2 screens. South Alabama at Southern Miss. So I think since we have 2 8 o'clock games next Thursday night, man, I get here at like 11:15, and we gotta do some serious hardcore breakdown of Central Arkansas UAB and South Alabama Southern Miss. The Jaguars, the Golden Eagles get together. Oh, then we've got all these cancellations and postponements. All right, then we get back at it September 5th. On that Saturday, we've got Middle Tennessee taking on Army. Eastern Kentucky Marshall, SMU Texas State, Houston Baptist North Texas, Arkansas State Memphis, Stephen F. Austin Utah. Is anybody going to watch any of that? Man, I really want to watch some college football. I guess if I had to watch any of those games, I'm opting for Memphis. Has been really good the last few years. So Memphis, Arkansas State's an option. That's a night game. Looks like Middle Tennessee Army might be a day game, so you get a little double header. Get to see the Cadets or the Black Knights. Get to see the Knights play. You got Middle Tennessee, and then you get a little Arkansas State. And our buddy Blake Anderson there, who has been here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, for an interview. And Mike Norvell's replacement at Memphis. I don't remember who that is. Who did they hire? They hired the Arizona State offensive coordinator, right? Help me, help me, help me. I'm forgetting who Memphis hired. Again, I believe they hired, who was the Arizona State offensive coordinator? That's our guy, I believe, and I'm taking way too much of everybody's time looking this up, I know. But I kind of want to know here. And since I got my contacts in, this is hard to read. Yeah, looks like we'll have to look at that some other time. Okay. Man, I blew it there. I can't remember Memphis's new head coach, Justin Fuente, Mike Norvell, who they hired. I think they went to Arizona State, right? Or did Norvell come from Arizona State? Maybe I'm confusing that. Anyway, I think we're spending way too much time on these Group of 5 games from September 5th. I think our week 1 is week 2. All right. Thursday night, here's your first Power 5 game. UAB, who's been in the Conference USA Championship game the last 2 years, at Miami. Thursday night game, maybe a little post game right here. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, depending on my work schedule. Another reason to spring me and get me here full time, because we like to do the post game as much as possible. And for anybody out there that has not been through a college football season with us here, would love to get your requests and recommendations of what you would like delivered during the season. What we basically deliver each week throughout the college football season are tons of previews and predictions. Then we also deliver our top 25, everyone together now, our top 25 that actually makes sense. So you're going to get a top 25 from me every week that actually makes sense. And that could be the challenge of challenges now with no Pac-12 and Big Ten. It's just going to be, we're going to have some pretty marginal teams in the top 25. But we've got our top 25 that actually makes sense. We've got, of course, our previews and predictions, our game recaps. And Saturday, we go nuts. We're here live talking college football. Try to jump on after the noon window, the 3:30 window, the primetime window, and get on here as many times as we possibly can. Again, you guys are able to spring me free and get me here full time all the time, then my Saturdays are not compromised as they were at the end of last season, unfortunately. So the late night with Mark is severely challenged this year. So again, you old timers who have been through many a college football season with me know that we're here until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, checking out these Pac-12 games and here live answering your phone calls. And that looks like that's going to be taken away from us this year. All right. Friday, September 11th, we've got Western Michigan at Cincinnati. The Bearcats at number 20 in the preseason poll. VMI, Virginia. Oh, those games are canceled. My bad. Strike that from memory. I know that you had already started to make plans in your head for the Western Michigan Cincinnati game. Please don't. All right, here are the games that matter. So we've got nothing on Friday. Nothing on Friday. We need Friday football. Nothing on Friday, September 11th. Okay? On Saturday, no game times announced, but we've got the ACC and the Big 12 in play. Clemson, Wake Forest. I think that game was only 52-3 last year. And we've got Oklahoma hosting Missouri State. Okay, Duke, Notre Dame, South Bend, UTEP in Texas, Tulsa, Oklahoma State, Syracuse, North Carolina, Louisiana at Iowa State, Georgia Tech at Florida State. I'm going to say this right now. Jeff Collins in his second year at Georgia Tech. More comfortable with the offense, more comfortable with the transition they had to make from the triple option to a conventional spread offense that you see at the collegiate ranks. Florida State, Mike Norvell, think he's going to do a fine job in Tallahassee, but first game with no real offseason. Anybody smell what I smell? Maybe. It shouldn't be a game. Georgia Tech at Florida State. Okay. Remember 2015. 2016. Was it 16? 15. All right. Western Kentucky at Louisville. Eastern Kentucky at West Virginia. Arkansas State at Kansas State. They could give the Wildcats a game. Charlotte at App State, under the radar, good game right here. Group of 5 fans, feel me. Charlotte at App State. SMU at TCU. They're all of about 15 miles away from each other, so this made sense under the circumstances. Austin P at Pitt, Louisiana Tech at Baylor. Could be a decent game. Dave Aranda still getting the troops together. Obviously, he's facing all the challenges first-year head coaches are facing this particular offseason. Really hasn't had the team together much. Louisiana Tech at Baylor. And then everything else is canceled. And we've got game times on Campbell and Georgia Southern, 6 o'clock. Tulane, South Alabama, 7 o'clock. But that's really our first week of the college football season. And if I could only watch one game, from a competitive standpoint, I think I'd like to see Syracuse and North Carolina. So I like to see the big teams play. I'm a Power 5 guy. I've got nothing against the Group of 5. They fill me up with all sorts of enjoyment on Thursday and Friday night, but when it's Saturday unless there's just an amazing Memphis-Tulsa game like there was in primetime last fall on a Saturday night. It's all Power 5 for me on Saturday. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, Sooner Thrawn. How you, man?
Hey, Sooner Thrawn. What's going on?
I'm doing pretty good. I was calling because we all know it's a goofy season, so I thought I'd talk about a few of the goofy games.
Good.
Like you mentioned, Central Arkansas. They're crazy. I don't know if you looked at their schedule.
I did not.
They are playing. That's right. That's right, Boomer baby. They're playing 8 or 9 games this year, and they're FCS, and they said they're going to play in the spring if they have a season. Central Arkansas is playing, and one of the games is, this is really weird, in October at North Dakota in Fargo, and it's the only game North Dakota State's playing this year.
What?
Central Arkansas is playing North Dakota State for one game, and people say it's to show off the quarterback because their quarterback's rated as a first round draft pick. I forgot his name, and they're playing one game at North Dakota State, and it's Central Arkansas going to Fargo. But Central Arkansas is playing everybody; they're playing all over the world. And then because in FCS, if their conference plays in the spring, they're going to play.
Okay, I'm looking at the North Dakota State schedule, and you, lo and behold, are right, Sooner Thrawn. One game. One game.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that was bizarre. And then the fact Central Arkansas is going to play this fall and play in the spring. Another goofy one, I have one of my good friends from high school. He played football 1 year, but then he ran track 93, 97 at Air Force Academy. So in Colorado Springs. Real bright. He's not in Air Force anymore, but he was for about 10 years. Air Force, their conference is not playing, but I think Army is independent, and then Navy's conference is playing.
Yep.
But Air Force is going to play, I believe it's Army in October and Navy in November, and that's the only games they're playing.
Really? I didn't notice these quirky.
If you pull up Air Force football schedule, you'll see it. And I texted my buddy. I said, "Did you see what your Falcons are doing?" He's an OU. He's from Oklahoma, so he's OU and he's Air Force. We always talk OU. And he said, "What the heck?" He goes, "What is that?" I said, he doesn't like it. And I said, "You have much more right to have an opinion than any of us. Obviously, you went there, but I mean, my guess is that Navy and Army asked, and I don't know. I said, is it a pride thing? Because they didn't want to say we're not going to play you because that might, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of a pride. We're definitely going to." He said, "I don't like that." He goes, "It's not fair." That's what my buddy said. He said they won't be ready to go. And then I said, and if they win, they can just say, "Oh, you only had to play 2 games." It's kind of a lose-lose for them.
Well, it should be healthy.
I don't like it. He said, "I wish they just weren't even playing." But the difference is Navy, I think, conference is playing. It's one of the group of 5. And then I think Army's independent. So.
Yes.
Because Army's playing BYU, and Army's playing a full season. Because they can't, from what I understand, the service academies can't play in the spring. Because talking about a schedule, there is no schedule more rigid than the academy. They could never play in spring. It's not even an option. But yeah, Air Force. I mean, I still think the North Dakota 1 game is just nuts.
That's hilarious.
I mean, but apparently their quarterback is. I mean, he is. I think going into the season, he was the 3rd rated behind Fields and Lawrence going to the draft.
Yeah.
His name blank, but he didn't throw an interception. Yeah, he went 44 touchdowns and no interceptions last year. No interception. I believe they won it again, right? I think they did. North Dakota State. They've won.
Yeah, I don't keep track of that, so I can't verify that.
Well, that's the only team that because they win it every year. And they have the championship. I've never been, but they have the well, I would still call it 1WA, AA. What is it? The F? What is it?
It's FCS. Yeah.
No, it's FCS. Yeah. The last 5 to 10 years, the championship game is in Frisco, which is a suburb in Dallas. It's like they always play it, and so it gets more hype here in Dallas. But then North Dakota is just so good. I mean, it's amazing if they don't win it. So, matter of fact, it was crazy. I ran in when I was in Galveston. For 4th of July, my family has a house beach in Galveston, and I always go to the fort, and we just happened to talk to this kid that was at the restaurant. And he was a wide receiver at Sam Houston State, and he was on the teams, one of the teams that got the championship and lost to North Dakota State. He played against that team, but they lost.
Well, I got to say, I like, actually, even though it's really weird and quirky, I like what the 3 academies are doing in making sure that they're playing.
I like it too. I like it too.
And Air Force can't do anything about not being able to fill out the rest of the season. It's not their fault. That's just what they've got. But I guess that's what they've got, although you're telling me that Army's been able to fill out a season, and I'm looking at it now, and, you know, it's not quite the quality that they would usually have, but it's because they'd usually be able to, obviously, with all the Power 5 conferences not playing any non-conference games, yeah. Army would typically play, you know, in reviewing their schedule every year. So I usually rank all the schedules. I didn't do it this year, but I usually take all the Power 5 schedules, including all the independents, and I rank them. And Army's, as you might expect, usually one of the worst schedules in the country, in the Power 5, if you consider them a Power 5. And I know that's debatable. But they usually play about 3 Power 5 opponents, 3 to 4, and then the rest are Group of 5. But they've got BYU, Cincinnati, Alcorn State, the Citadel, Texas San Antonio, Mercer, Air Force, Tulane, Georgia Southern, UConn, well, that was canceled, and Navy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games.
Yep.
Okay.
And I know Navy has not 10 games because they play in the conference, which is at the U.S. Is it the American Conference? They're playing. Isn't it American?
So I screwed up here, Soonerthron. They're playing. Army might be the only team in the country that's doing this. I missed because when I was scrolling, it didn't activate for some reason. I missed I was counting in reverse there. They are playing 2 other games. So they've got a 12-game schedule. They're playing Middle Tennessee State and Louisiana Monroe the first 2 weeks of the season. So they're playing 12 games.
And are they traveling for a lot of them, or a lot of people come? Are they on half the road, half the home?
First 3 at home. Then they go to Cincinnati. Then they're at home for the next 2. Then they go to Texas San Antonio. Then they're at home for 2. Then they go to Tulane. Then they're at home for the last 2. So they're playing only 1, 2, 3 road games, 9 home games.
Yeah, that was before all the madness. That was actually a huge road game this year, an experience that I wasn't going to go, but my parents were going to go. OU was playing at Army this year.
Okay.
And it's been on the schedule. It was scheduled like 10 years ago. And, of course, OU, there was going to be, OU travels pretty good, but I think there would have been even more just to go. And my parents know, like, people from their church that I think 3 kids of theirs have all gone to the Army Academy. And I think, I'm pretty sure, which is amazing. And they said just the pageantry and all that. So my parents, they were going to, it was going to be like, it was a big trip that who knows, when it'll get rescheduled, it will. But that's one that, and I think would not have been an easy game, and it would have been a very fun, amazing experience.
Absolutely. I would love to do that too. I'm only about maybe 2.5 hours away from the Army from West Point. So I would like to make that trip and catch a football game at some point. But I'm just looking.
I from this year, like this year you probably can't go. So
no, can't go this year. But I'm thinking, when has Oklahoma made a trip like that? So I was having this conversation on our Miami live stream a couple weeks ago, because if you look at Miami, they've gone to Appalachian State, they've gone to Toledo, they had a date at Arkansas State, they got wiped out, but still they scheduled to play at Arkansas State. They're the only major team that I can think of that routinely goes and plays at these small locations in the group of 5. When has Oklahoma ever made that kind of, they are doing this because it's Army, I would think.
Yeah, they did that with, matter of fact, talking about Air Force, the year after the championship, 2001.
Oh, did they?
They went to Air Force and played at Air Force, and my parents, they went to that, so but it was at Air Force. I remember that one. They went to Cincinnati with Landry Jones.
I remember that. Okay.
Remember that. UCLA, that's a Power 5, so that's
sure.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
Power 5. I'm not sure they really qualify.
Well, they do play in that big Rose Bowl, so that still has a little cachet to it. But yeah, they don't look like a Power 5 because it's just I just can't think of Alabama, Penn State, Ohio State, on down the line, Michigan, Notre Dame making those kind of trips. I can't think of any. Ohio State played Navy. It was actually the year Braxton Miller got hurt and J.T. Barrett took over, 2014, when they won the national championship. But they played at a neutral site somewhere. They played like in Philadelphia or Baltimore.
But that Notre Dame sometimes play at Navy.
Yeah, they'll play at Navy. Man, that's usually a neutral site. I think it's all. I think it's actually they had contracted to play at Navy. And that was the first time in forever they played at Navy. They were always playing in Philadelphia or the Meadowlands or San Diego. So, all right. Good stuff, man. Anything else?
Oh yeah. One of the scenarios that, because it's such a wacky year, what team, let's go with the best, Memphis or Cincinnati, they run the table.
Yeah.
What has to happen in the other 3 conferences for a group of 5 to make the, now that we know there is going to be an invitational, like we call it, it's an invitation. What would have to happen? Like, does every team have to have 2 losses in the group in the Power 3, or you know what I'm saying? Like,
that is a great question.
How do they make it?
That is a great question, because think about this. This is the opportunity for the group of 5. Two conferences are gone. And
Cincinnati's never been ranked in the top 25. They've never been ranked, and they are. They're like 24.
In the preseason top 25. Yes. Yep.
Right.
Man. And the other thing that you don't have this year are obviously non-conference games. So let's face it. Forget the SEC, obviously. The SEC is the SEC. But there are different perceptions of what the Big 12 is and what the ACC is outside of Clemson. And there are no games for them to prove that they're any better outside. So, man, if we get 3 clear-cut conference champs, OU, Alabama, Clemson, and then we've got a bunch of 2-loss teams sitting there, and we get a team like Cincinnati, who are they playing? See, the problem is they don't get a shot to play anybody to prove anything. You know?
But what if I very well could see it this year. I think this is the worst OU team since 2014.
Sure.
I think Texas, Oklahoma State, and I would say all the champs. I'd say there's 3 8-2 teams, and the one that wins the conference is 9-2.
Okay.
So Big 12 9-2. The SEC, obviously, they're going to have at least 1. Yeah, we'll give them 2. And then you have an undefeated Clemson. Then you have a 10-0 Cincinnati and a 9-2 Iowa State. We're not going to get I think Texas and Oklahoma, you know how it is. They like the big, but Iowa State might not get that benefit of the doubt. Does Iowa State have to win the conference 9-2, Clemson go 10-0? I mean, Cincinnati, does that put them in? And then everyone else has at least 2 losses except Clemson and like Bama or whatever. And then the SEC probably is the second. So that last one. So the 10-0, Cincy make it over 9-2 Iowa State. I'm not sure they make it over any. Maybe any 9-2. We'll say 9-2 Big 12.
Yeah, but who's
That's
the
really,
second? Who's the second place team in the SEC? There's your team that's going to be there. They're going to be in.
Yeah, like let's say Bama runs the table and then Georgia makes it.
Yeah.
I'm going to put Clemson at that last spot where, and I very well could see it be. There could be 2 or 3 8-2s. I really could see the Big 12 having a 9-2 chance.
They just don't have games to see. It would be nice if we would have this scenario without the Big 10 and the Pac-12. Not that I want it, but eliminate those 2 conferences. And if we had our top group of 5 teams like Cincinnati, like Memphis, like Boise State, if they were playing, that would have their shot at somebody. But since they don't have those games to prove themselves, I just don't see a scenario. And you're not going to have second place teams in the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 lose 3 games. Not in all of them.
What about if your scenario happens with Kentucky and they go 9-3 and lose to Bama? Let's say Kentucky wins the East.
Sure. So
Kentucky wins the East.
Yeah. So they're 8-3. So that knocks out. I gotta think though the second place team in the West is going to be 8-2 minimum.
Yeah.
LSU, Texas A&M.
I think you got to have all 3. I think if one SEC team was only going to make it, they might have a chance because you don't have the other SEC team. They might put them in. I don't know. Just thought this is the one year that it is not unbelievable that it would not be possible because there's so. I mean, you're as compared to some seasons.
Again, we needed it looked like for a while there that, they are playing an additional game in the ACC and in the Big 12, but they're playing all those lower level teams. What is Cincinnati's schedule? Let's see here. I can't imagine that they're playing anybody significant. I can't remember. Let's see what we've got for Cincinnati.
By the way, SMU I think will beat TCU. They beat them last year.
Yeah, they did.
And remember they have Bouchel still, and they went 11-3. And TCU's quarterback has got some kind of medical problem, and their backup is some
Sean Dugan. Yep.
The starter Dugan's probably not going to play in that game, and their starter, some backup that walked on in Georgia. He's not hardly played at all in like 4 years. I think TCU will probably lose that game.
Yeah, so Cincinnati's not playing anyone. I mean, hugely significant. They've got Memphis and Central Florida and the teams they got to play in their conference. Now, Memphis, I just
too bad that UCF didn't keep the North Carolina game because they ran the table.
Yeah,
and they had beat
exactly.
North Carolina. That could have been. And they're a team that's really been in the top 10, 15 the last 3 or 4 years. They would have had a. Who never knows? Of course, they just might make themselves national champs anyway. So they go 10-0.
Well, sure. I was a big proponent. I was a big supporter of that. I was okay with that.
Okay. Heck, Oklahoma State did it when they were declared one from the 1940s or something. They have a banner. They have a banner at the stadium. I saw it when I watched OSU last year in Stillwater. There's the banner. It declared it like 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man.
When you win them all, there's nothing else you can do.
Bearcats to the playoff. I'd love it. I'd love it.
All right, Senior
All right,
Thrawn.
Have a good one, my friend.
You too. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. We're trying to get the group of 5 in the college football playoff, but it seems pointless. All right. We've got moderator choices in the live chat. Good to see. 247 Canes likes Arkansas State over Memphis. Chris Olave will be a day 1 or day 2 pick in the NFL draft, according to JJF. Trevor, fired up to be a moderator. So, if you would like to be a moderator, please send me an email to MarkRogersTV@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment in the comments section, the regular comments section, because the issue I have in the live chat is that once we're on here for a couple hours, then I try to go back and find comments. It's nearly impossible. David Knight, Mark, the same guy that roasted you for Florida also roasted me. Interestingly, he claimed LSU and Florida are a win-loss every 2 years. The last 10 years, LSU has beat Florida 7 out of 10 times. Yeah, the people that roasted me on my Florida predictions in particular, and it also spilled into Kentucky and Georgia and others, and people are always going to have exceptions to predictions. For some reason, this offends people. Making predictions gets people all bent out of shape. You know, if somebody's going to predict Ohio State's going to lose 3 games, let's say they were playing this year and somebody said Ohio State's going 9-3 this year, and I thought they had a good YouTube channel. Sure, okay. I think you're wrong. So certainly people can let me know when they believe I'm wrong. But name calling and banning the channel and leaving, and I'm not going to watch you anymore because I don't like your predictions. It's kind of silly, especially when I've often had some amusement from going back, seeing the predictions that are right, and then seeing all the bashing that I've taken, and then thought, where did these people go? Where did they go? They bash, then they see that it comes true, and then they're gone. All right, so this this conversation we were having about position U, that was started by, at least this particular time, by an ESPN article that's on the front page of their college football section. I guess we'll get to that later. Oh, did I knock them off? Did I do that? Did they leave me? I think my finger didn't know the difference between a 1 and a 4. All right. Call back. 56 on the line here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. You can contribute to the channel a number of ways. Hit the like button. Smash the like button. You know what? If you want to kill like 2 minutes, go through all my videos, like the last 10 or 12 videos, just hit the like button. Smash the like button. Comment to the channel, of course. And I've got a lot of comments to get to that I would like to get to concerning these prediction videos, because I have been splitting a gut over these comments about these prediction videos. They're hilarious. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, Dave Knight. How you doing?
Hey, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, we'll talk about Florida, okay? So don't want anybody to come over and cut my throat while I'm asleep. Did you read today? I thought that the NCAA said they were going to grant a freebie year for anybody who's interested in coming back to play the next year.
Yeah, I did not read that today. I thought that that had already been in play.
Okay, so I mean, but that's going to be a definite possibility, or not even say a possibility. It's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, the NCAA has stated that anyone who doesn't play this year retains eligibility.
Okay, so that's a pretty good shake. Imagine if you had played 4 years and you just wanted to play another year, and you graduate and get a chance to get a year into your master's program.
that would be a good shake for anybody, I would think.
Well, that's another interesting power struggle that could have ensued between the conferences and the NCAA, because it was my understanding that weeks ago that there were conferences saying, well, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 in particular, after they canceled, that they would retain scholarships and that they would retain eligibility for those players that had first the players that had opted out before the season was canceled. And then once the season was canceled by those two conferences, that they said everybody retains eligibility and scholarships. So
okay, well,
I would think that the
we'll see how that
conferences
shakes
and the
out.
schools would make that decision.
Yeah, that would seem, because they're the ones that are going to have to fork it up out of the funding, right?
Sure, it's their scholarship.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You're right. Thank you for allowing many extra people to dip into our scholarship fund. So, okay, that's all I had, and definitely won't say anything bad about Florida. I've even prayed about that.
Well, I have nothing against Florida. Just when you make predictions on games, obviously you got to predict that somebody wins the game and somebody loses. And the people that root for the team that you're predicting to lose take a huge offense to that for some reason.
Yeah, all I said to you was like, wow, you took Florida to beat LSU, and then, because I know I follow recruiting more than I do, say, SEC football, so I look at all the teams that have done well, and LSU's recruited well the last couple of years, so they may have a really good shot at a lot of plug and play, and while their drop-off would seem great, it may not be that great. So who's to say?
Well, the point I was making as well, and I was digging around for my notes here, but I've lost. Oh, no. Here they are. I need to shoot a video on this. I did too much work to look this up. And I did the research knowing what I was going to find anyway. Take Georgia for an example last year, Dave. Georgia defeated 4 teams that were either ranked in the top 10 when they played them or finished the season ranked in the top 10. They defeated 4 teams ranked in the top 10. The only loss that they had was to a 4-8 team. And then we got Oregon, for example. Oregon beat 2 teams ranked in the top 10, and they lost to a 5-loss Arizona State team. Oklahoma beat 4 teams ranked, 3 of them in the top 10, and they lost to a 5-loss Kansas State team. Wisconsin lost to a 7-loss Illinois team. And I could go on and on and on and on. I just got started with that. And that's just 4 teams ranked in the top 10 from last year. What I was trying to point out is people think it's so ridiculous that a team that finishes, let's say, close to the top 10 could possibly lose to a team that goes 8-4. No, it happens constantly.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's why I really don't believe that trap game theory is legitimate anymore, because you can't go into any game of the year thinking, oh, this is a gimme. Those days are over. So, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure somebody else wants to call. You were actually on a topic, so I'll let you go. As good talking to you.
Thanks,
Take
Dave.
care
I
of yourself,
appreciate
sir.
it. Appreciate the support, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Shoot, I had a point to make. I was waiting for that phone call to end, and I was kicking right into the next point, and pew, it's gone. Memphis Tigers head coach Ryan Silverfield. Thank you, Dale. Dale, I have never seen your name and your avatar here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. So we're going to spring an old tradition on you, Dale, especially since you supplied me with an answer that I was embarrassed not remembering who Memphis hired to replace Mike Norvell. Welcome to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Dale, appreciate you again supplying me with the answer there, and also would love to know how long you've been watching and who you root for. And I still can't remember what topic I was going to go off on. It had to do with scheduling and results of games. Okay. P Digits, appreciate it. 247 Canes, you as well. Guys doing a great job here. I just started to look at some merchandising options. I've had quite a few people asking me about merchandise. Little Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football merch. So yeah, we'll get on that. We'll do our best. Of course, the season's coming up, so I can only do so much. But would love to have the merch lined up for all of you. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Nate the Great, don't be late, a.k.a. Nathan. How are you doing, sir?
Nate, how are you?
Pretty good, how are you?
I'm good.
So what I was going to talk about tonight...
You're going to talk about whether Nebraska and Miami's a rivalry.
Well, I mean, I can say that for later.
Okay, all right. I know that's one of your favorites.
But,
that's one of your go-tos.
What? Yeah. I really... so I've been kind of like... what's the word? Not trash talking fans, Ohio State fans, just what's the word? Dang, what's the word? It's not trash talking, it's something else. I am from them, there we go. But what I'm saying is that, like, if you look at Michigan or Michigan, and in the history of Michigan football, they had a lot of experience for football, and I think were they the first football team that played, or no? Or the Yale and Harvard. But
So Michigan was one of the first football teams to establish a football program. But anybody in the live chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost positive that the first football game was played at Rutgers. That Rutgers had the first football game. Obviously, they had to play against somebody else, but somebody technically established their program first. But the first collegiate football game was played at Rutgers. Now, I'll have to look up to see who they played. I'm sure I've looked at this before, but I'm not recalling. So what's your point on going that far back?
Like, I'm just looking at the history of it and like how established like teams that established the birth of football and college football, and how the rich history is, and look at current today. I mean, Michigan hasn't been good since, I would say, 2016, which is their best year. I would say.
Got a question for you, Nate. I hate to cut you off, but when somebody tells me that somebody's good or somebody's not good, what's your definition of good? What does it mean when you say Michigan's not been good since 2016? What is good?
They had a great defense. I mean, but the problem is for Michigan, they don't have a good offensive line except for Jalen Mayfield. But I think that's about Jalen Mayfield's only good offensive lineman. But overall, Michigan has been a good defensive team over the last 8 years, I would say. But I mean, I hope the O-line will improve overtime, and yeah. So yeah.
Okay, Nate, that's your Michigan
Mark.
take.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Just to fill in the blanks on our first game ever. So, as I stated, Rutgers played the first collegiate football game. It was against Princeton, 1869. So we all know that college football just celebrated its 150th year. So that makes sense, 1869 to 2019. And Rutgers won the game 6-4.
Wow. I mean, that's a close game for a first game. But hey, close game.
So at least Rutgers was able to win a game that year.
All right. All right. I have to go. See ya.
All right, Nate. All right. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Again, I was admonishing everyone to like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. The reason you do that is then you hit the bell, turns on the notifications, and you know when we go live. Which for this week has been, let's see, we went live on Saturday night with the call-in show. We're going live, of course, right now. We were live last night with Florida State football talk. We've got Ohio State and Miami coming up on Friday and more Miami on Saturday. And yes, we're doing 2 Miami lives this week. And we would like to do other live shows on a regular basis, but we need the interest and we need the contributors. And time is not on my side. Let's see. What do we have? We got Trevor's in the live chat with Destroy 247 Sports or 27 Kane 247 Kane 2880 28. Any decent comments here? Yes, Trey Lance is the guy from North Dakota State at quarterback who's being scouted by the NFL and should be a fairly high pick. Got MSU #1 fan in the chat. Mark Thibodeau, good to see you. Sean Broussard. So also keep in mind, support for the channel. We were talking Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. You can go to any of those sites. Just search Mark Rogers TV. PayPal was the only link that I could put because the other ones are apps. PayPal, I've got the link down in the description section of any of the videos. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. So share the videos. This would help out immensely because you've got a social media presence that I don't have. People that follow you on social media, Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter. Yeah, that's what it's called. Twitter. Have never heard of me. So you post a video out there and say, hey, we love talking college football over here. Why don't you join us? When you shop Amazon, please use the link in the description section of any of the videos. You'll see it right there, Amazon. It's the same exact shopping experience. Exactly the same experience shopping Amazon. Just use the link in the description section of the videos and it helps support the channel. If you got any requests or recommendations for what we do here in breaking down college football, let me know. So we ran down week 1 and week 2 in college football. Nothing too exciting, but it's going to be exciting just to see guys on the field playing college football, especially again, a week 2, week 1. It's going to be difficult for me to get into any of those matchups in week 1. But in week 2, Clemson, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, Duke. Kind of like that Charlotte Appalachian State game. Of course, we got Georgia Tech and Florida State. And then 2 weeks later after that, we've got the SEC kicking it into gear. if this was a typical season, I wrestled with this last year. I threw it out there for, well, it wouldn't be a whole lot of fun for me, but it would be fun trying. 24-hour live stream. So we typically start on a Thursday night with college football, the last weekend of August. So with a Thursday night in play, think about that, we lead into it with 24 consecutive hours live. But the problem is, if I go 24 consecutive hours live, which I don't know how in the world I would do that, but maybe I would have guests come in. We'd switch off, and we could keep it going for 24 hours. And then I go take a nap for 2 hours. I come back, and we keep it going. 24 hours live heading into the college football season. Again, this is not the season to do it. We just don't have the games, the matchups. It's just not, just don't feel the vibe. But the problem is then I leave myself with 24 consecutive hours live leading into the first college football game on a Thursday night. And then we got to watch all the games on Thursday night and then talk about them. And then I guess I'd crash finally. Okay, so 288028 is telling us that the Oklahoma Army game was scheduled in New York, probably at the Meadowlands. 247 Canes is predicting Notre Dame to lose 4 times this year. You know it. Who would be next here? Probably Georgia for a helmet. Georgia, Auburn, Penn State, Nebraska. Those seem to be the likely candidates. Georgia at the top. Auburn, Penn State. All right. And actually, I need to order Iowa and get this, Tulsa. I ran a contest about, or I ran a poll. It wasn't a contest. I ran a poll about a year ago and said, what helmets do you want to see? And I'll purchase the next 2. The 2 that get the most votes. And it was Iowa and it was Tulsa. So somebody rigged it for Tulsa. Somebody out there just went nuts for Tulsa. Had to have happened. All right. In terms of what positions have been the most successful at what schools, again, ESPN produced and posted this article that's on the front page of their college football section today that basically outlines since 1998, that was the first year of the BCS, that's the period of time they're reviewing. And they've got a concoction of measurements between NFL success and college football success that I think is reasonable. I don't think it's infallible. I think it could be improved, but it's reasonable. So there are top 10 quarterback schools of the past roughly 20 years, 1998. Ohio State at 10, LSU 9, Florida 8, Auburn 7, Florida State 6, Texas 5, Louisville 4, Oregon 3, USC 2, Oklahoma 1. Successful quarterback play at LSU since 1998. Besides the obvious, 2019 Joe Burrow. Sure, they won national championships in 03 and 07 with decent quarterback play for those 2 years. Then they had awful quarterback play. Zach Mettenberger was decent, but he was really the starter for 2 years, right? 12 and 13. Jamarcus Russell was the most talented to play there. Matty Mock, Jordan Jefferson was a disaster, but he played in a national championship game. Okay, LSU seems a bit of a stretch, especially considering the quarterbacks that have come through NC State. Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers since 1998. Jacoby Brissett. Mike Glennon was a good quarterback. Ryan Finley had a good college career, and we'll see what he does in the NFL. And that's a pretty stacked deck against LSU. Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, Ryan Finley, Mike Glennon. Running back you, what stands out? I'll need to catch the comments here from all of you. Besides, Kevin Warren should be fired. What's my take on Texas? Hang on just a second. We'll get to the running backs here. Arkansas 10, Georgia 9, Oregon 8, Texas 7, Auburn 6, Oklahoma 5, Miami 4, LSU 3, Wisconsin 2, Alabama 1. Well, the first two are rock solid, no doubt. LSU's gone on a run since about 2007 with running backs. It has been pretty stellar. Jeremy Hill and Derek Geis and Leonard Fournette and company. All right, what's our question here? Jeremy asking, Mark, what's your take on the Texas Longhorns recruiting rankings over the last 4 years? State they have the 7th most talented team, veteran leadership. Are they not getting enough respect? Well, they haven't earned any respect. So if we're looking at respect that's been earned, they haven't earned much respect, I should say. I think Sam Ehlinger is one of the top 15 quarterbacks in college football. He's very good. He's a gamer. He's tough. He's learned how to read defenses and throw it downfield a little bit better than he did when he first came up and just ran over linebackers. Their running back position. We did a roster breakdown about a month ago on Texas. And yeah, the recruiting has been insanely good for them to continue to underachieve, especially when the recruiting rankings are obviously national rankings. And you could understand a South Carolina bringing in top 20 type classes than having to play inside the SEC, and it's just not coming to fruition. But Texas in that conference has out-recruited Oklahoma. So the Texas personnel right now, let me refresh my memory. We'll get into some Texas. And this offseason has been so crazy. It's not been the typical MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, production line of previews on teams. So typically we preview all the teams. We just preview everybody and go nuts, and it helps me relearn all the teams that I'd forgotten about from the previous season. But we really haven't done that. We've been talking about pandemics. Constantly talking about pandemics. Texas football. Yeah. We will get you some Texas football. But yeah, check out the video from about a month ago. But yeah, if you're just talking about recruiting, I would question the comment you make there about veteran leadership. Yeah, they've lacked leadership. They've lacked player development and lacked leadership. They had some of the most talented wide receivers in college football the past couple of years, with a decent quarterback, with a really good quarterback, but more of a runner than passer, but still a decent passing quarterback. The offensive line play has not been very good at Texas. And the defense, I thought, had turned the corner going back to 2016, Tom Herman's first year. I thought that they had a match made in heaven. So he comes in 2016. They have legitimately the best defense in the conference in 2016. Maybe Iowa State's there, maybe TCU's there, but Texas, in terms of talent and production on the field, best defense in the Big 12. And some people are laughing right now when I mention Big 12 and defense. Get it. And then you bring in the offensive mind of Tom Herman, and I thought Texas is going somewhere. And they did the next year. They won the Sugar Bowl. But the last 2 years have been disappointing. Or was that 2018 they won the Sugar Bowl? Yeah, so it was just this past season. that was disappointing. So they're not developing players. They are not running the ball well. Offensive line play has been poor. And see, that's one of the fallacies of the recruiting ranking. Quarterback's the most important position on the field, and it's treated like every other position, which is fine. But if you grab one of those quarterbacks that can make a difference and be a game changer, face of the franchise kind of guy, well, he's just counted as one guy versus your defensive tackle or your outside linebacker. Well, the quarterback's more important. And then the kickers, for some reason, are only basically 2 and 3 stars, 3 stars at the most. Well, the kickers are, I hate to say it, they're really important. And they decide a lot of these games. James is telling us that Auburn and Georgia are the top 2 running back schools ever. I don't know if I agree with that. We'd have to certainly do some research. So, of course, he's got 1 and 1A right there with the top guy at each school. We know who that is. It's Bo Jackson, and it's Herschel Walker. Auburn, since Bo has had your, oh man, this guy was tremendous. I am losing it. Late 80s, Lionel. Oh my goodness. Played for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm losing my names here. Auburn running back, Cincinnati Bengals, late 80s. He was a tremendous player, catching the ball out of the backfield. Then, of course, you had Ronnie Brown and Cadillac playing at the same time at Auburn. And really, their running backs since then have been good. Trey Mason, Cameron Artis-Payne, really good running backs. Not greats, but very productive 1,500-yard backs. Georgia has been on a ridiculous run of producing running backs, like going back to Robert Edwards about 15, more like 20 years ago, 22 years ago, 1997, 98, in that range. Robert Edwards. And, of course, now we've got this run of Todd Gurley and, everything that they've done here in the last few years with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, and now Zamir White, James Cook. Going back to Garrison Hurst of the 90s. James, you might want to put your favorite team in the mix with those two. Ohio State could stack up just as well as Auburn and Georgia all time. These are the kind of topics I know where I will forget all sorts of people that I know very well and know their stats and know their numbers and know their history, but I'll just forget them just off the top of my head, that I'd like to really sit down, look at it, produce a video, and then say, okay, here are my running back U candidates and choices 1 through 10. Yeah, so your tight ends, Nate, are exactly that. Miami's at number 1, I believe. They should be. Arizona State 10, UCLA 9, Michigan 8, Wisconsin 7, Oklahoma 6, Notre Dame 5, Missouri 4, Stanford 3, Iowa 2, Miami 1. So when you hear those top 3, those seem to fall right in line. Miami, Iowa, Stanford for tight ends. Stanford really has had a great run since Jim Harbaugh took over, and then through David Shaw's tenure with producing NFL tight ends. There you go, Ronnie Brown. Yes. Oh, yes. Brandon Jacobs, who had to go to Southern Miss. Was it Southern Miss? I thought it was Southern Illinois. Brandon Jacobs, I thought went to Southern Illinois. James. Nonetheless, he had to leave Auburn. Yeah, so it was Southern Illinois. Brandon Jacobs. I am losing it over who I'm forgetting. I can't think of his name. Lionel. Somebody help me out. Bengals, Auburn. Tremendous running back. Lionel James. Lionel James. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
What's up, Mark? It's DeAndre. How you doing?
There he is. DeAndre, it took me about 5 minutes to remember Lionel James' last name. Do you remember Lionel James? Cincinnati Bengals, Auburn.
I will say the running back that you are talking about, Jacob.
You with me, DeAndre?
They had 3 good running backs at the same time.
Yes.
That Cadillac, Jacobs, and
Ronnie Brown.
another one, Ronnie Brown.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Okay, that was about 2005. That was 2003, 4, 5 in that range. When they could have won a national championship. I was going about 15 years before that with, actually a little bit before that. He played with Bo Jackson, Lionel James.
Yeah, I remember Bo, but I don't remember him.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was still in love with Clemson.
I got
So,
you.
you know, hey, Mark,
Yep.
I want you to answer. You might have answered it before for me, but I would like to know what the answer to this. And because you bring up the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, I can't remember I know what Texas A&M, he threw for a lot of touchdowns. But at one point his junior year, wasn't he 9-6 for touchdowns? I'm quite sure he was.
Was
and
he?
then that Texas A&M game, he blew up.
Well,
I want to say the Alabama game, he was like 9-6 to touch, nine touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
well, in the Alabama game itself, they got shut out 29-0. And yeah, so he threw 4 touchdowns in the bowl game against UCF. And like you say, the Texas A&M game was the last game of the season for them. And they lost, 74-72. I don't think he threw as many touchdowns as you would think he would have thrown in that game because, anyway, I'll look up the stats, but I'm almost positive Joe Burrow's TD to interception rate his junior year was 16-5.
I was in an interesting debate, and I don't have nothing against Joe Burrow. LSU whooped Clemson ass. And there's nothing that you can say about that. They won the game fair and square, no controversy. They won the game. They was a better team. But we were talking about Clemson team in 2018 and 2019. Clemson with that defensive line with Destin Lawrence, Farrell, Carlos Wilkes. Yes, that team, I think was better than the team the next year. And we were going back and forth. And I said, Joe Burrow was a one-hit wonder. I mean, I'm sorry, if you can't beat out Haskins at Ohio State, and they already calling him a bust after 5 games in the National Football League. I mean, there
just telling me that you may not be that good, maybe with the system and the talent that you had around you.
Well, I do think it's kind of.
Am I wrong?
Well, I do think it's. I was the one person that was thinking, okay, Joe Burrow is the hands down number one pick. Everyone's saying it, and the Bengals are certainly sold on it, and there doesn't seem to be much debate about it among the NFL draft experts like the Kuipers and McShays and those guys, and Mayock. Well, Mayock's in the booth now with Oakland, but in the general manager's office. But whoever the NFL Network has now, I can't remember the guy's name, does a really good job. But they never seem to question that, and I always thought, is he just he's not that imposing physically. He doesn't have a rocket of an arm. And I know the numbers are crazy good, but so were his receivers and his running game and the scheme. And I'm with you. I just I'm not saying that he won't turn out to be a really good NFL quarterback. I just didn't necessarily see him as the number one player with no doubt.
But see, my problem is, if you look at his grade before this, and I know that, I don't get a lot of chance to talk when I'm on other people's channel, and they let me try to work out my words, but he was a fourth round projected pick before his senior year, and he just blew it. I just can't trust. I remember when Jake Locker was supposed to be a great quarterback in the NFL, then they were talking about Kaya at Miami at one point. Mm-hmm. He was going to be a number one pick. Do you look at Mitch Trubisky? I didn't know who Patrick Mahomes was at Texas Tech. I ain't going to lie to you. I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know who he was. But I would say he's better than Deshawn Watson right now. But you tell me that Mitch Trubisky is better than both of them? I mean, what were they looking at? I mean, I'm just saying, I know I'm a Deshaun Watson fan, but his stats look a lot better against the top competition in the country, which was Alabama. So I just don't understand how they come up with those NFL picks.
I'm right there with you, DeAndre. When Deshaun Watson came out, I'm thinking, I'm not a scout. I can't rate all these things that these scouts are able to do, but I'm like, this guy is making the most talented defense in the nation look silly, and especially in that second championship game. What's that?
2 years straight.
Yeah, exactly. And in the first game, he amassed a ton of yardage, and they got behind. And of course, there was the kickoff return, and there was the onside kick that really killed them in flipping the score that he didn't have anything to do with, of course. But in the second game, what impressed me was that he got beat up in the first quarter. Alabama came out and just hammered him, and they hammered the Clemson defense with their running game, and they went up 14-0, and he was just getting bloodied, and he just hung in there. And then in the fourth quarter, of course, there's 2 drives that he has to score a touchdown, and he's delivering. Now, of course, the receivers, Mike Williams had a great game, and Artavis Scott, they were making great catches in one-on-one situations. But he just delivered, and I just thought... You mean
Deion Kane. Kane was the one that was jumping over everybody.
There you go. Okay, Deion Kane. I just assumed it was Williams. I don't have instant recall of some of these
Mike
games.
Williams and Deion Kane, not Scott.
Not Scott.
It was
Scott.
Mike Williams and Deion Kane.
Yeah, Scott was obviously he was the slot guy, a different type of player. But and I just came away from that thinking, what have I seen on a Mitch Trubisky? What are they watching? He's obviously got talent. He can play. He's got an arm, but he played 1 season for North Carolina, didn't play in any meaningful games. It's not like he went out there and threw 50 touchdowns.
I'm sorry, he couldn't beat out Marvin Williams. That's what I said.
Yeah. The year before. Yeah, sure. So I'm with you. I just don't. I don't know what they're overthinking or I don't know what the knocks on Deshaun Watson were. He's certainly got not the biggest rocket arm you'll ever see, but he's in the top 5 or 6 in the NFL. He's got a very strong arm. He's mobile. He's smart. He's played in the highest pressured situations you're going to see. I don't know.
I mean, proud of Nick Saban, and I'll go ahead and say it, and I hope my fellow Clemson fans don't get mad at me. Urban Meyer got to be the second best coach in the in college football history in the last, since 2000? I mean, and he didn't feel like he went crazy about Joe Burrow. If he started, what's his name? Barrett and Haskins over.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I mean, I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback. That's what I look at too, and I know you got other callers, but he's 25 years old, and you got two quarterbacks like Jackson and what's my boy name right there in Arizona, who's younger than him. And so I'm like, I just personally can't see it. It's not that knock on them. They would Clemson play, but at the same time, I just don't see it. So I just don't see it. I mean, I'm not saying it's not gonna be great like you said, but like the Joe Montana comparison, I'm like, dude, I mean, like, he has some really great wide receivers outside this. I mean, did you see what's the kid that was burning AJ Terrell, the receiver? Did you see his matchup with Stingley last week? It went viral. And he was doing the same thing to Stingley that he was doing to AJ Terrell. And you seen what AJ Terrell, I don't know if you've seen him, but if you've seen AJ Terrell highlights at Atlanta going against Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been taking the ball from them boys. I mean, I just, maybe that dude, the LSU receiver, he's just great. I mean, because, all you got to do is throw the ball up in the air, and it seems like he'll go get it.
Yep, and they had 4 of them that were tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, he was. But Justin Jefferson are the one that's still there. Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase is still
Jamar
there.
Chase the one that's still there.
No,
He's still there?
Terrace Marshall's still there. Jamar Chase is still there. Yeah, Justin Jefferson got drafted.
Jamar Chase is the one that was beating Terrell.
Okay.
And like, he's just a beast. I mean, I know Jordan Jefferson is real good too. I think he was a first-round pick by the Vikings. I mean, he's pretty good too, but he had a lot of talent, and the running back went to everybody's shot in the first round of Kansas City. Not saying he wasn't good, but I mean, everybody thought that I forgot the running back name, but everybody thought he was going to go number 1. I forgot who I was talking about to be the first running back off the board. So, I mean, he had a lot of talent in that whole offensive line. And Stingley, I don't know how anybody throws on him. I mean, he's just really that good, man. Yeah. I mean, he's nasty. I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to duplicate what they did last year, but I would just watch it. And I'm a Steelers fan, and I know the Steelers are going to light the Bengals up because that defense that the Steelers got, they're going to be beating your Browns and Bengals all year long. Now they finally got a quarterback. So, but I'm going to let you go, Mark. Hey, one more thing, Mark.
Sure.
I hope you give me a chance to talk. I know Bobby and Pisky and Pete. I know they've been busy, but I hope you give me a shot. I know it's about ratings, so but I'll be ready to put on the show for you.
It's not all about.
You're building brand. I understand that it's business, and those two are more established than I am, and they do great shows. And I have supported all 3 of y'all. But they can't go. I'm willing to go and show what I can do.
Well, DeAndre, it's not all about that. Now let's not completely confuse that. So you're right. Yeah, I'm here ultimately because I do want to build a brand, and I am building a brand, and I want this to go full time, and I want it to go viral, and I want it to be huge, and all that other stuff. So I do make some business decisions. But I'm sitting here for what? I've been sitting here for 2 hours with 41 people watching me. Is that doing anything for me? Not really. It's not doing a whole lot to either make me money or really build my brand, but I like to do this. So there's still the fun element and the enjoyment of it that I love. So yeah, we can get on here and talk. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Well, when you're ready, just let me know. Just let me know how to get in touch with me on Twitter.
Okay.
And hey, man, I'm ready because like I said, they're great guys, but I know they be busy sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, after 6 o'clock, I'm free. It's always like it takes me about 30 or 40 minutes to get home from work. So like give me a few minutes and I'll be out there. But hey, man, if you're ready to go, let me know, man.
All right, DeAndre.
I appreciate it, Mark.
I appreciate you. Have a good one.
All right. Anytime.
James is helping me out here. So I got my wires crossed up here. So, you know, I don't know if any of you are at the age that this happens to you all the time. There are not dozens, not hundreds, thousands of NFL players, college football players, Major League Baseball players. Those would be my three in my wheelhouse that I would like to think that I know about as well as anybody anywhere. There are now players that I knew their number, their stats, watched them play a zillion games, just had them locked in, but I haven't thought about them for years. They haven't crossed my mind. And yeah, I was mixing up to a certain extent, not really, but to a certain extent, I was mixing up James Brooks and Lionel James. Lionel James played with Bo Jackson, which I had that in my mind, and that's how it turned out to be. And then Lionel James he was more of a kick returner and a scat back, caught passes out of the backfield, and was a kick returner. Then he went to the NFL and played with San Diego. James Brooks played later, about 5 or 6 years later, and then he had a really nice career with Cincinnati in which he was a top NFL back. He wasn't like a workhorse guy because he was a little bit on the small side too, but he had a great career. James Brooks for about 5 years was a top back in the NFL, and he caught a lot of passes, and he was lightning quick, great moves. James Brooks, Lionel James, two different separated by a few years there at Auburn, both played in the NFL. Thank you, James. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, what's up, Mark? It's Trevor Emmerich. How are you?
Hey, Trevor. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Just watching any good show so far. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
I was looking at the position you list. I'll say this. I went through. We got Russell Wilson there with NC State, and then also with Wisconsin. I'll say we talked about Deshawn Watson earlier. I'll say that was the other one when they drafted in the draft. I never understood why Russell Wilson was a third round pick. Really, I always thought Wilson should have been a first round pick. It was. I mean, absolutely amazing. I mean, he absolutely destroyed big time defenses at Wisconsin in his senior year.
Yeah, I think the NFL, with the success of a Russell Wilson, the jury's out on Baker Mayfield, but Kyler Murray, jury's still out. But showing that they can play, they're giving up on this whole ridiculous idea of metrics where half of the inches are making determinations in the past on where guys get drafted. Now, of course, football is a physical sport, and you've got to have some level of stature to play it. That's understood. You got to be strong enough to withstand hit after hit after hit. You got to be tall enough to a certain extent. You can't be 5'3" trying to look over. So there are requirements physically, but to rate a quarterback who's 6'1" over a guy who's 5'10", who's better in every other way just because he happens to be 6'1" over 5'10" is ludicrous. And they're finally, with the success of some of these guys, and Drew Brees to a certain extent, had Drew Brees been 6'4", he would have been drafted in the top 5 or 10 in the NFL, but he was drafted 30th or 32nd because he was a little bit shorter. Hopefully they're getting away from that.
Yeah, I definitely think they are. I think Kyler Murray at 5'8" completely just blows that up, but also with going to the spread offenses and just more advanced blocking schemes. I mean, you can have a shorter quarterback now just as the field to spread out. The other thing I'd say, looking at the SEC, I mean, the schedule release and all that. Honestly, I was looking at it. I think the SEC might be able to pull off 3 teams in the playoffs this year, especially if OU and Texas can't get it together in the Big 12. What do you think about that? Or you think I'm like out to lunch there, or you think that's actually a possibility?
So are we talking about the 3 best teams or the 4 best teams in the country? We're talking about the 4 teams that quote unquote earned it. Meaning, do I think that the 3 of the 4 best teams in the country might be in the SEC? Yeah. So the 4 best teams in the country may turn out to be Clemson, Alabama, LSU, and Georgia, let's say. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
You know, after watching the football season, I might be sitting here at the end of the season saying, regardless of what the records are and who the selection committee is choosing to be in the playoff, I think the 4 best teams are Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. That's like when Baylor and Oklahoma were playing in the Big 12 championship game and people were arguing about Baylor and Oklahoma versus Utah and Oregon. And I was saying, well, are we talking about who's earned the spot, which, you know, we can squabble about schedules and who's got the better schedule and who's looked better and all that other stuff. But Alabama's not going to go and lose to LSU by 6 touchdowns in the college football playoff. They're better than all those other teams. I don't care that they've lost 2 games. They're just better.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I hope this year, especially with having like the limited season like we have, it goes to like the most not the most deserving, the 4 best. Because I'll say, as someone who roots for Michigan State, 2015, we deserved to be in the playoffs. We were not one of the 4 best teams, though, by a mile, and it got shown that we got absolutely boat raced by Alabama.
Sure.
And I just think it's like Notre Dame, even Oklahoma in 2018. It's like we saw when you put the 4 best teams in, Alabama in 2017, they won the national title. Just put the 4 best in. And, the way I'm kind of thinking is like, I just hope they put the 4 best in and just forget all this. Well, they're most deserving. It's like, no, they're not the best. Go play them. Schedule them. Make your schedule better. Go play those teams and prove you're the best. I mean, that's what LSU had to do last year. LSU went to Texas and proved to us all that they were real. And, I mean, they went through a gauntlet in order to get the national championship.
I hear you. So I'm on the argument of we because we just don't have enough evidence. I'm choosing the teams that earned it. I think there's a reason we have conferences and the reason we have it set up this way. But certainly I could go through every year and just tell you who I think, after watching a complete football season, tell you who I think are the 4 best teams in the country. And again, even with Mac Jones at quarterback last year, certainly if Tua would have been healthy, they wouldn't have lost to Auburn. And I would have said the 4 best teams in the country are LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama. But Oklahoma earned it. And I think unless we want to completely tear up the system, then we have to award playoff spots to teams that earn it. Otherwise, I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely. I mean, I definitely see the point there.
Because not to cut you off.
I mean, especially the TV contracts, you're going to have complete and total just chaos.
Yeah,
especially with all that, like it's like the teams start getting left out. They're going like 11-1 consistently.
Yeah, and just to take your example from 2015, again, Michigan State beat Ohio State fair and square. They went on to the Big Ten championship game. They won. Michigan State that season lost to a 5-win Nebraska team. They beat Iowa, who was undefeated, but then showed at the Rose Bowl that they weren't really that good of a team. Michigan State needed the last few seconds of the game to beat them. And they won a game against Michigan because the punter lost his head and threw the ball up like a fool and on the last play of the game. So Michigan State could have lost like 4 times. So
they only beat Purdue by 3 that year.
There you go.
And this is actually an interesting statistic. Did you know in 2015 that Michigan Michigan in those games.
That's right.
They
Sure.
did not lead to the final, final play.
Yeah. And so if we're sitting here evaluating talent, what would College Football Nation have wanted to see? I think they would have wanted to see that the Ohio State team that just won the national title in 2014 and beat Alabama in an epic game go ahead and play them again. But they didn't earn it. They lost the wrong game. They needed to lose to Rutgers or somebody. They needed to lose to Maryland and beat Michigan State and just go ahead and do what they were talented enough to do, but they didn't do it. So you got to reward the team that earned it, but it didn't create the best matchup.
Yeah, I do. I mean, yeah, I definitely, honestly, I think you may have changed my mind with that argument, honestly, just about the deserving part of it. Like, you do have to factor that in. You can't just have, like, a group of bureaucrats sitting in a room just picking. It's like, what are we even playing the games for?
Yeah, because we start the season thinking, okay, we got about 7 teams here. We only really need to watch about 7 teams play and figure out whether it's going to be, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, or are we going to throw LSU in there, or is it Georgia, or there's pretty much our teams. Okay, let's just watch them play. So it's difficult. Yeah, it is difficult, and that's why it would be nice to have a system in which both could be rewarded. The second best team in the SEC could be in the playoff because they're most likely one of the 4 best teams in the country. But you're winning the Big 12 at 11-1, 12-1 with the conference championship game, and you're being rewarded as you should be because you've earned it to go into the playoff. Both could happen. Just expand this thing to 8, and we can have both.
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, I would even go for doing something like a 14 or a 16, where it's like where I don't know how much you pay attention to basketball, where kind of like the Big Ten tournament or like the old Big East tournament, where like the number 1 got a double bye, like you do like 13 versus 16, then 9 versus like the winners that play like 9 versus 12, and then you reseed them at 1 through 8. That way you're not getting blowouts or like 1 through 8, where it's like somebody's getting pro race and in that final game.
So we could have quite the debate on that. I'm not a big fan of that. The only reason there is people sometimes call me and they want to play a 16 playoff, and I get it. They're thinking if we go out to 7 and 8, those teams are inferior. But the advantage of getting a bye, and I would challenge anyone to look at the 6 years at the college football playoff and try to determine who gets a bye and why. It's extremely difficult to do. To determine which two teams get the bye.
Good point. Because it's like, I mean, any good coach off the bye, especially like a 1-month bye, is just they're gonna just out scheme the other side entirely.
Yeah, it's about the obvious. If you've got a bye, you don't play. You have won the game. You have been given a win. So that's the ultimate advantage, that you don't risk losing. Secondly, yes, you get beat up. It's football. And then from a schematic standpoint and preparing for a game, my goodness, it's just a huge advantage. And again, if we go year to year, there's no clear-cut 2 teams that earned it. It happens in the NFL playoffs, but those teams objectively earned that position.
Yeah, and you just have so much more, I'd say, kind of evenness with the schedule in the NFL. I'll say this. I got one last question for you, and then I'll get going with some other people get on and call in. Dark horse playoff team this year. Who do you think that no one's kind of looking at really that might be able to make a run and kind of surprise a lot of people?
Well, under the format we have with these 3 conferences, I'll throw out a few teams and you tell me if they're true dark horses. So the 2 teams that I've been the most intrigued to watch play this year are North Carolina and Tennessee. Those are the 2 teams
I count both of those as dark horses. I mean, 2 years ago, neither of them were making bowl games.
Is Texas A&M a dark horse?
year, I mean, yeah, I don't think anyone would pick them to win the SEC West even. So, yeah, I would think that would have to qualify as a dark horse.
They're my dark horses.
I mean, and they got a chance because they got way more. They got Florida added and they crossover, but I mean, they definitely have a way more favorable schedule than they had the last 2 years.
Okay, let me answer your question a little bit more precisely, because I've been thinking North Carolina and Tennessee. Not that I've been thinking during the offseason that these teams are going to make the playoff. I'm just intrigued by the development and the progress that I saw last year, plus the recruiting to see them play. And with North Carolina in particular, having those games non-conference against Auburn and UCF, I was intrigued to see North Carolina play, but we're being robbed of those games. So my official answer to your question is North Carolina and Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky. Okay, I really agree with that. I'm on Kentucky with you there. I mean, Kentucky, they're playing a wide receiver quarterback last year. The year before that, they were a 10-win team. I mean, they can definitely make some noise. And Mark Stoops is, as a lot of, I'd say, people originally from the Midwest now. I mean, he's come up here with Vince Murrow, and I mean, he's been picking talent out of Ohio and Michigan like it's a job, basically.
Yeah, Mark Stoops has done a great job. They had a tremendous defense 2 years ago, and now it looks like they're going to have another unit that should be one of the best in the SEC. And they've got 2 tremendous running backs. Really, if Terry Wilson can... The year that he played 2 years ago when they won 10 games and finished in the top 10, he needs to be a little bit better than that, but he was efficient. He completed 68% of his passes. I think they've got a bit of a formula. I'm not in love with their schedule. They picked up Alabama when the schedules were revised, but I'm a big Kentucky dark horse guy this year. Yeah, like you say, they played a wide receiver quarterback and they went 8-5 last year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's unheard of. I mean, it's not that does not happen that often. All right. Well, hey, thank you for taking my call. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna let some other people get on and just enjoy the show. Hey, have a great night.
Appreciate the call. All right, good stuff coming in here. We're about 8:15 Eastern time. We've been on since 6 o'clock. I think we've done yeoman's work here. What do you think? Yes, Joel, thank you for reminding everyone, as anybody else has in the live chat. I appreciate anybody who is encouraging everyone to press that like button. So there's a number of ways in which you can contribute here. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, for us to do it bigger and better and more consistently than we have. So the super chat's available to you. And I want to make sure, Vernon, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. We got that to the screen. Vernon doing a great job covering Auburn and the SEC. Check out his channel, Vernon Speaks Sports. And I also posted a super chat from, thank you, Gators Zoned. Gators going 19-0, Mark. Go Gators. Playing an NFL schedule apparently this year. Gators owned. I appreciate you not taking offense to my Florida prediction of, well, you got to watch the video. I think they're a tremendous team, but I think that you see teams every college football season that may finish, let's say 8-4, 9-3, and you say, man, they were that close. They were really good. They were that close, but man, that schedule was daunting. Plus, it didn't break right for them. I think Dan Mullen has a good thing going in Florida. I think Kyle Trask is the best quarterback in the SEC. I don't think he is the highest ceiling, so he may be surpassed by a Jamie Newman. Bo Nix has a tremendous ceiling, but for this particular season, I think Kyle Trask is the safest quarterback, the safest good quarterback that we know what we're going to get after the performance in 2019. The defense is retooled. They lost a lot on defense. I was just looking at Florida personnel just the other day, just reviewing the losses on defense. I think they lose a lot there. They lose a lot at wide receiver. And Texas A&M, LSU on the schedule with Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee. But I appreciate the Super Chat contribution. And we may have had somebody else on here. I have a long night of work in front of me overnight. So we're going to get to it. Appreciate everybody jumping on the line. Again, I know that this was not announced, but the big reason why you smash the like button, you subscribe, you get the notifications when you hit the bell, and you know when we're going live. Okay. SEC Dog, did you watch my Florida video, my prediction video for the 2020 season? I don't know if you really could call me being on the Florida train this season. Okay. All right. Very good. We will continue to do better. That's our aim. That's our goal. That's our mission. Best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football. Tomorrow, 11:30 a.m., Miami Live at the Wholesome One. All College Football Nation is invited. George, thank you so much for the letting us everybody know there. 11:30 a.m. tomorrow. Then at 1 o'clock, Ohio State. And then Saturday at 11 a.m., back to Miami. And if you want to see more from other teams, please. I would love to do live streams with other teams. I'm not all about Miami, Florida State, and Ohio State. I've got no affinity toward anyone except for the Scarlet and Gray. So anybody else, I will do a live stream with any team as long as people will watch. If you want me to do a Purdue live stream every week, I will do it. I will love to do it. It would be my pride and joy to do Boilermaker football every week, but somebody's got to watch. All right. Appreciate it, all of you. We will see you soon. Spencer Radler, big numbers. That's what I expect. Thank you, SEC Dog. There we go. David, appreciate that. Liter of soda, bag of chips, $5. Cough up some dough for the show. Thank you so much, Dave. We'll get there, buddy. We will get there. Any other comments I should get to? Thank you, Joel. Got NTI's Fanatic 21, who might, along with Navy Thomas, be my two longest standing supporters. Thanks, Mark. There you go, Trevor. Thank you so much. I appreciate you asking. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, MarkRogersTV. Just MarkRogersTV. If you look that up, you should be able to find me. You will see some picture that shows some face of mine, some picture of mine from the last 10 years. So it should look something like me. So you can't miss it there. MarkRogersTV. Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate that. And again, we need to get on this moderator deal because that would help me to, of course, moderate and monitor the live chat, but also would allow me to send out some information, some links to all of you. (11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, Miami Football Talk. All college football fans welcome to Trash Talk in the live chat. We will see you then.